What is going on, everybody? Welcome back. Offset and Penalties podcast, episode 23 now. We're creeping up on a couple dozen podcasts. I am grinding out the content for this podcast ever since I came back down to school because, there was the stretch for Christmas where not much content was coming out. It was hard for me to do at home. Wi-Fi connection issues. Plus, you want to spend time with friends and family, but I'm trying to grind out the content, and this is the perfect time of year for it. UFC, if you haven't checked out the UFC 324 preview pod, do so now, then come back to this. If you're a UFC fan, if you're not, stay here. We're talking football today. NFL Championship Sunday. Two really fascinating games. I don't think anyone could have ever imagined these four teams being the final four teams. If you talk to them before the season or, even midway through the season, really, two fascinating matchups, and we're going to get into them. We're going to preview them. I'll give you guys my predictions. Probably not a super long show considering there's only two games, but I'll try my best to really break down these two matchups and what to look for. Before we start, if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. I'm a YouTuber now, basically, so I got to ask you to do it. If you're listening on Spotify, please drop a follow and check out the Offset and Penalty social medias. Instagram, YouTube Shorts, TikTok. Clips from these pods are being posted on there. Those are doing really great. I'm getting a lot of love, a lot of support, and I appreciate it so much. I think this thing can really grow, and I'm grinding this thing out right now, and it's been a blast to do. So without further ado, let's get into the games. NFL Championship Sunday, and we start in the AFC at noon, CBS game. The New England Patriots, after their 20-year dynasty, it only took them 3 more years to come back and get back near the top of the mountain. And they're going to Denver to play the Denver Broncos. Of course, the big story in this one, no Bo Nix for the Denver Broncos. New England 4.5-point favorites in this one, 42.5-point over/under. Weird game. There's a lot of different elements to this game that make this fascinating, and I think you got to start at the quarterbacks. Let's talk Denver. Jarrett Stidham getting the start. Sean Payton made an emphasis when he came back to the podium, announced Bo Nix was getting surgery on his ankle. He wouldn't play the rest of the season. He made an emphasis to say Jarrett Stidham is the guy. We're not looking to get someone, sign someone off the street, do a Phillip Rivers type thing. This is the guy that's playing for us. And I think that's the right decision. We've seen shades of Jarrett Stidham. We've seen shades. If you guys remember when he was in Vegas a couple of years ago, when Derek Carr, at the end of his time with the Raiders, he got benched. Jarrett Stidham came in, started the final 2 games. He actually played a really good game against a really good 49ers team. Of course, the Niners would go to the Super Bowl that year. And then he faced the Chiefs in Week 18. So he played the 2 Super Bowl teams in the final 2 weeks of the season for the Raiders, and he started both those games. He's been a Josh McDaniels guy most of his career. He got drafted to New England, so he started against his former team that he got drafted by. He got drafted to New England when Josh McDaniels was there. Then he followed McDaniels to Vegas or Oakland, the Raiders, when McDaniels took over the head coaching job there for a little bit. Now he's in Denver. He's been the backup to Bo Nix, and last year at the beginning of Bo Nix's rookie season, when it was announced that Bo Nix won the job, there was a quote from Jarrett Stidham saying, "I believe I'm a starter in this league." And a lot of people are saying yeah, it's your opportunity to go prove it. And it is, but this is as difficult and complicated as an opportunity to do so as we've really ever seen. You're starting in the AFC Championship against a defense that is red hot. I want to talk about the Patriots defense in depth a little bit here in a sec. But on the flip side, you've got Drake May. Most people think he's going to be the MVP runner-up. Most people presume Stafford's going to be the MVP. I don't want to give my MVP vote because wink, wink, there might be a podcast with that next week during Pro Bowl week because I'm not going to do a Pro Bowl preview. Who do you think I am? But Drake May, he's been incredible this year. The postseason hasn't looked great, and I think that's not his fault. The Patriots O-line is not good, right? Let's put that out there. The Patriots offensive line is not good. Will Campbell, the number 4 overall pick, he dealt with an injury a lot of this year, and ever since he's come back, he's gotten beat a lot. After that Texans game on Sunday, all the Patriots were celebrating and stuff. If you watch the tonal video, all of them were celebrating except Will Campbell. Will Campbell, body language was not there because he was getting beat that game. Will Anderson had a hell of a game. Danielle Hunter had a hell of a game. To be fair, those 2 defensive ends do it to anyone. And I think that the protection for Drake May has been an issue. He's been sacked a lot this year. He's had a lot of fumbles, and that's been an issue against the Chargers and the Texans because, let's face it, in the 2 Patriots playoff wins this year, the offense hasn't been the one doing the heavy lifting. But I will say is Drake May has done enough, right? And sometimes in these playoff games, You're in cold weather. It's kind of defense versus defense. If you're the opposing team's quarterback, sometimes you just got to find a way to do just enough. And against the Texans, what really ended up being the difference in that game was that touchdown pass to Kayshon Boutte up the right sideline. Incredible catch by Kayshon Boutte, but also incredible throw by Drake May. And that's a connection that those two guys have had going back to last year when Drake May was a rookie, and it's continued throughout this year. Of course, they've got Stephon Diggs, who had a good game against Houston as well. I think that Drake May is legit. I think Drake May is rightfully so an MVP candidate, but you do worry about protection issues and, holding the ball, not fumbling, not getting stripped when you're facing a team like Denver who has a really, really good pass rush. Nick Bonito was announced today as a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. Obviously, he's not going to win it. Everyone knows who that's going to, number 95 in Cleveland, but Nick Bonito is an excellent pass rusher. Zach Allen, super, super underrated. DJ Jones is really, really good. They've got a group of pass rushers that aren't huge names, but they've been really, really effective this year. I think they led the league in sacks, if I'm not mistaken. So, that's going to be an issue for Drake May. But now let's talk New England's defense, right? And let's go back to Jarrett Stidham. Jarrett Stidham, right? We haven't seen him start in a couple years. We just haven't. And this is a defense that has been terrorizing quarterbacks these playoffs. Justin Herbert looked just lost and was seeing ghosts against the Patriots in that wildcard matchup. And last week, everyone, including myself, I posted it on the Instagram Reels and the YouTube Shorts and TikTok and all that. CJ Stroud was a disaster last week. And rightfully so. You got to put blame on CJ Stroud for that. But this Patriots defense was a nightmare for him. And it was a nightmare against the Chargers as well with Justin Herbert. So if we've seen CJ Stroud, who hasn't been great as of recently, but we know what CJ Stroud is capable of in this league, and Justin Herbert, who most people agree is a very, very, very good quarterback in this league, and if this Patriots defense had those two guys seeing ghosts, what are they going to do against a guy who hasn't started in a couple of years, is facing a team that's already familiar with him? Josh McDaniels, the OC for the Patriots, was the guy who's been with Jarrett Stidham a lot of his career, so he already has kind of the inside scoop on tendencies and such. It makes me worry for the sake of the Broncos offense. Okay, I trust Sean Payton to put together a game plan. As we know, Sean Payton offenses, it's a lot of screens, it's a lot of schemed open type stuff. But if this Patriots defense has been as much of a nightmare as it was for CJ Stroud and for Justin Herbert, how's it going to be for a guy who hasn't started in a while? So for that reason, I really do think the Patriots are going to advance to the Super Bowl and win this matchup. I just think that this defense has been so good. And it's not a defense that's got a bunch of crazy big names or anything. It really doesn't. It's a defense that is just so well coached by Vrabel, by I forget his name, so pardon me, but the guy who stepped in and called the plays last second when their original defensive coordinator ended up with cancer before the year, and the guy who stepped in has just been unbelievable for him. And this defense has been really, really good. And the strength of this defense, as good as they are, at every level, the corners of this Patriots team are elite, right? Carlton Davis had an unbelievable game against the Texans. And a lot of times Carlton Davis gets targeted because on the other side, you've got all-pro Christian Gonzalez, and in the slot, you've got Marcus Jones, one of the best slot corners in the league. So this cornerback trio that the Patriots roll out on the field is just a nightmare for opposing receiver cores. And what that allows the Patriots defense to do is send these wild exotic looks, these wild exotic blitzes. If you were watching that Chargers game, they were sending the most mad mental blitzes at Justin Herbert. I'm talking you're walking 8 guys up at the line and you never know which 5 are coming, which 3 are coming, which 7 are coming. You just don't, because it's the pressures are just, they're brilliantly schemed is what I'm trying to say. Mike Vrabel has done such a good job with this team, with this defense. They've got some unsung heroes on the back end, like Jalen Hawkins at safety, a guy who kind of bounced around with his career, never really been a solidified starter anywhere. Ellis at linebacker is a guy who hits a lot. On the D-line, they've got some really good players like Kayvon Chason, who at one point was a first-round pick, and this is his 3rd or 4th team, but he's finding his way with them. There's a lot of unsung heroes, but it's all because of that cornerback trio that they can rely on to just cover you, right? And they can do wild stuff up front at the line of scrimmage with the front 7. So I do like the Patriots in this one for that reason, but, Jarrett Stidham has been a guy who's been with Sean Payton for 2 years now. He knows the offense very, very well. It's very clear that they're very committed to him right now, right? There was no thought of going and getting another quarterback or exploring the options. Like, it was Jarrett Stidham is the guy. That was immediately, the conclusion that Sean Payton and this coaching staff came to. So, I don't think, I think Jarrett Stidham, we've seen the shades. He's got a really good arm. And if Sean Payton calls a brilliant game, maybe we're talking a different story. But I just think this Patriots defense, I've talked on this podcast extensively about how elite Houston's defense has been, how elite Denver's defense has been, how elite Seattle's defense has been. And this Patriots defense all year has been like a sneaky, really, really good defense. And at the beginning of the year, they were the best rushing defense in the entire league. They didn't have a running back over 50 yards against them for an extended period of time. And then Milton Williams, their big free agent acquisition, if you will, during the offseason, he went down with an injury and the run defense fell off a little bit. But ever since he's been back for these playoffs, it's been hard to run the ball. We'll see if the Broncos have J.K. Dobbins in this one. J.K. Dobbins, is a very big part of this Denver run game. It's been since he went down. Jaleel McLaughlin, or however you say his last name, had a good game against Buffalo. R.J. Harvey, the rookie, is a really fun player. He's got a lot of athleticism and he's really good in the receiving game, but their run game needs J.K. Dobbins in between the tackles. And I'm recording this Thursday afternoon Pacific time, right? So we'll see if J.K. Dobbins ends up playing in this one. He's been practicing limited. His IR window got open. But even if he does play, he's been out for a while. He had a foot injury that was, somewhat severe. It was from a hip drop tackle. And it makes you a little hesitant to think, okay, even if J.K. Dobbins is back, is that Denver run game going to get back to being able to run between the tackles like it was before he got injured? I kind of doubt it, especially against a defense as elite as the Patriots defense has been against the run. And like I've said, their corners are so good that it's not any easier to play against them with the pass, and it just gives them all the flexibility in the world to send these exotic blitzes at you up front. So, I think New England has been a team that has been very much disrespected, especially the later half of this year. I think they've been unbelievably disrespected because of the schedule that they play. And I picked against them in the wild card round. I thought the Chargers were going to beat them, and then I picked against them last week, and I thought the Texans were going to beat them. And maybe I'm cursed, and if I'm cursed, I apologize to all my New England fans out there. But if I'm not going to pick against them anymore. What I've seen these last 2 weeks is this defense has been unbelievable, and Drake May and this offense makes just enough plays, right? And when you have a defense that's clicking like New England's is right now, you just need to make enough plays. And Drake May has shown the ability to do that. Meanwhile, you saw a guy like C.J. Stroud last week. When his defense is playing good, he's, tried his best to lose games, and he hasn't made just enough plays. He's made negative plays like turnovers. Drake May hasn't done as much of that. So New England's defense is phenomenal, but I don't want to disrespect Denver in this one. I think it's going to be a close game. This is a 4.5-point line, and if you took Denver with the 4.5 points, I wouldn't blame you. I could see this coming down to the wire. Denver's been a team that has played a bunch of really, really close games this year, a bunch. And, I could easily see this being a game that's decided in the last minute or two, especially with even if Denver's offense is struggling, their defense, they have such a good pass rush. They've got the reigning Defensive Player of the Year, Patrick Surtain, on the back end. This defense is so good that, fine. If the New England's defense is clicking, I'd be remiss if I didn't think Denver's wouldn't be either. So I do think this is a close game, and when I pick New England, I'm not trying to walk back my pick by any means. I just don't want people to think this is going to be like a 27-10 or a 28-20 win. I think this is going to be within 3 to 4 points. So if I were to bet on this game, I would take Denver in the points, but if I'm picking straight up, I think New England wins. I think they move on to the Super Bowl and continue what has just been an unbelievable coaching season by Mike Vrabel to come in, take over this team that was coached by Jared Mayo last year, did not look great. Bring in Josh McDaniels, which has been such a good move. As we've seen, Josh McDaniels is not a great head coach, but what he is he's a really, really good offensive coordinator when he's in New England. This offense has been really, really good this year. Drake May has been really, really good this year. And if the defense continues clicking like they are right now, it's going to be scary for Jarrett Stidham and this team. And the other factor, of course, is, the altitude. Denver has an advantage there. They have a day's rest on New England. That's, of course, a factor. But in terms of the cold weather in Denver, New England's been playing in the snow, in the cold in Foxborough the last 2 weeks of the playoffs and down the stretch in December. So that doesn't really scare me in that aspect. I like the New England Patriots to win this, move on to the Super Bowl. How spoiled are Patriots fans? You guys had a 20-year dynasty, right? And finally, Brady leaves, Belichick leaves, and finally the whole league's like, oh, we're good. We don't have this dynasty anymore plaguing the league. And then, we get the Chiefs and we get their little mini dynasty. And then right when the Chiefs are bad, oh, the Patriots are back. And it just feels like the AFC for a long time now has been the Patriots and the Chiefs. And then, sprinkle in a Broncos year in 2015 and the Bengals year in 2021. But how spoiled are Patriots fans to have all those good years, and then it only takes them like 2 or 3 years to right the ship, and then all of a sudden they're back playing for AFC championships with a second-year quarterback who looks great, a first-year head coach. Like, that's the scary thing. Is I've talked about this extensively about the Bears and stuff. As much as I hate saying, oh, there's next year in the future and all this, because there's no givens, there's no guarantees in the National Football League. It's a league that changes so much year to year. It's scary that this is what this Patriots team is doing. They won 14 games this year. We're the 2 seed, beat 2 really, really good teams at home in the playoffs. And this is year 1 of Vrabel coaching this team, and this is year 2 of Drake May. Really, really scary, and honestly, some great moves by their front office, bringing in Stephon Diggs, bringing in Milton Williams, bringing in some of these unsung heroes, like I mentioned, Jalen Hawkins, the safety earlier. It's been just a really, really good operation since dating back to the offseason, and I just think that this is what good organizations do. Whether you hate the Patriots or not, they're definitely, I will say this, they're definitely a whole lot more likable with Vrabel and May than they were with Belichick and Brady. Whether you like them or not, this is what good operations do. You have these dominant stretches, and then you have down years, and then you return back to dominance. And that's why oftentimes, more often than not, we see history repeat itself in the NFL. It's very rare that we get these teams, these organizations that have been bad for so long, and all of a sudden they flip the switch and they're really, really good. A lot of times it starts at the top of the organization with the owner, with the GM, with the president. And if they know what they're doing, you're going to have some bad years. That's bound to happen in the National Football League, but you right the ship. And that's what this New England team has done. And I just can't praise them enough. And I don't mean to make this a whole, like, I love the Patriots. Patriots are a great thing or anything, because I do think what Denver has done has been unbelievable. They've had a really good offseason bringing in guys like Talanoa Hufanga on the back end, and the offense, without having any like perennial superstars, has been really, really good. And the Broncos offensive line has been really, really good. And the reason I still lean the Patriots is, even as good as Denver's offensive line is, the Patriots, they're not beating you just rushing 4. That would favor the Broncos offensive line, but it's about blitz protection, blitz pickups. Is Jarrett said I'm going to be able to conduct that whole operation coming off the couch after 2 years of not playing. So exciting game, fun game, interesting, a lot of storylines, specifically with the quarterbacks and the head coaches. So it'll be interesting for sure. Let's move to the NFC side of things, and many people are deeming this game, whoever wins this game is going to be moving on to the Super Bowl and winning the Super Bowl. That's what most people are saying. Most people think no matter who wins between this game of the Patriots and the Broncos, that it's going to be the winner of Seattle and LA that's going to win the Super Bowl. As a 49ers fan, it makes me want to throw up thinking one of these two teams is going to be playing the Super Bowl at Levi Stadium in the Bay Area. But it's felt this way the entire year. As cool of a storyline as the Niners have been, as cool of a storyline as the Bears have been, and then, of course, Philly being the defending champs, it's felt all year that these were the 2 best teams in the league, or in the NFC at least. AFC, obviously, the Broncos and Patriots and Jacksonville were pretty dominant throughout the regular season, but this is the game that most people have their eyes on. These 2 teams, obviously being division rivals, played each other twice this year. Both games were decided by 1 score. The last one went to overtime. That was a ridiculous comeback by Seattle to win it. The first game was the Sam Darnold 4-interception game. The Rams ended up winning, but Seattle had a chance to win at the end. It was a 61-yarder at the end that Jason Myers missed. Hard to hit a 61-yarder at the buzzer, I get it, but point is, both these games have been close, and both these games could have gone either ways. This one, Seattle being the home team, rightfully so, 2.5-point favorites, 46.5-point over-under. I want to talk about these 2 previous matchups a little bit, because that first matchup, Everyone wants to talk about the second matchup that happened, week 16 of the NFL season. That was the shootout. The Rams were in control. There was the weird 2-point conversion where it was a backwards pass, and Charbonnet picks up the ball, not thinking anything of it, but then they went back and it wasn't incomplete. It was a backwards pass, and because he retained possession, they got the 2. Wild game. A lot of people call it the game of the year, and I can't blame him for that either. It was such a really, really good game. But let's go back to their first matchup in LA about 5 or 6 weeks before that second matchup. And this was a game that Sam Darnold threw 4 picks in. And this was a game that people looked at and go, oh boy, is this the old Sam Darnold back? Is the Sam Darnold that we saw the final 2 games with Minnesota back, the one with the Jets, is he back? And since that game, what we have seen is we've seen Seattle's pass rate drop drastically. They were already Kubiak Shanahan system. They were already committed to the run. They are even more committed to the run now because that game, it to me was very evidently clear that after that game, the Seahawks coaching staff had less confidence in their quarterback from that game on. And since that game, they've been running the ball unbelievably effectively. And honestly, I think that's when this offense operates the best. We've seen them with Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet have this excellent 1-2 punch. Well, now that's the fold in the equation. Zach Charbonnet torn ACL last week against San Francisco. None of him. Kenneth Walker, I think, is an unbelievably talented running back. He has some stupid plays. He's the king of either getting 30-yard rushes or negative 5-yard rushes because he's always big play hunting. I think he's an unbelievable running back, and he's just never been able to really statistically put up the stats because they always counted on a 1-2 punch and would bring in Charbonnet on the short yardage and the goal line because he's a bruiser. And I don't blame him for that. When you drafted Charbonnet, they spent pretty good draft capital on him. I understand that completely. Charbonnet's down. So is this going to be Kenneth Walker workhorse time? Maybe. Do you trust him enough to do that? Has been the reason you've been doing the 1-2 punch between Walker and Charbonnet? Has the reason for that been you like Charbonnet a lot, or is the reason for that you don't like the risk of the negative plays that Kenneth Walker brings when he's on the field? We're going to find out because last week when Charbonnet went down, Kenneth Walker ate. He had a hat trick against the 49ers. He had a really, really good game. He had a really, really good game against the Niners in Week 18 to finish the season. So it really comes down to that because if they put the ball in Sam Darnold's hands, right, this Rams defense has shown, even in that win, even in the Seattle win in Seattle, the Thursday night game late in the regular season, that was a game that Sam Darnold had a rough first half and threw a couple picks in that first half, including one on a simple simulated blitz in which Mike McDonald rushed a DB or a linebacker and dropped a D lineman into coverage. That's a big factor in this one because since their first matchup, they have not trusted Sam Darnold to really let it rip like they did in the first half of the season. Now, Zach Charbonnet's out of the fold. That might affect the run game. Do you trust Sam Darnold enough in this game? So that is where Rams fans coming into this one can be confident. They can look at this and go, okay, wait, Sam Darnold, this defense has had success getting pressure on Sam Darnold, picking off Sam Darnold this year, forcing the turnovers. Obviously, Sam Darnold led the league in turnovers this year. And now, without a piece of his run game, maybe there's a chance that the Seahawks are forced into a lot of passing situations, and that's where we can really take advantage. But then we go to the other side of the ball. And this Seattle defense has been just unreal, man. Mike McDonald has just mastered the art of defensive play calling, and really this front office has just built such an unbelievable roster, defensive roster for the Seahawks I'm talking about. And it's been a mix of veterans. You've got the veterans like DeMarcus Lawrence and Leonard Williams up front, and then you've got these young guys who are just athletic and mean and fast. I'm talking Devin Witherspoon. I'm talking Nick Eamon-Worry. They brought in Ernest Jones, the captain and the linebacker of this defense. He's been phenomenal. Former Ram in this one. And it's just been, like, I hate it because I don't like the Seahawks at all being a 49er fan. But as a football fan, I'm like, this is defensive art. What they do is defensive art. What made the Houston Texans defense, which is the only other defense on Seattle's level this year, what made them so good was they were just running basically man coverage and rushing four and just saying our guys are better than your guys. Seattle's guys are better than your guys, but they're not just sticking to one coverage and their bread and butter. They mix it up. Mike McDonald does a great job with a lot of the simulated pressures. They run a lot of dime. For my people who are kind of football casuals, dime means you're running 6 DBs, 4 corners on the field. That's because at the beginning of the year, Tariq Woolen their big, fast, tall cornerback, who they drafted a couple years ago, lost the job starting on the field to Josh Jobe. But what they realized is the dude is so good that they can't hold him off the field, so they run a lot of 6 DBs. So it'll be interesting to see how the Seahawks dime defense, the 6 DBs, will pan out against the Rams, a team that this year has run a lot of 13 personnel, meaning 3 tight ends on the field. We'll see. I think the way you beat Seattle's defense is you run the ball. And the Niners were not able to do that last week, and the Niners have had a pretty weak run game this year. I think the Rams have been able to run the ball, but Kyren Williams and Blake Corum don't really move the needle for me as runners. I think they put up good performances as a product of Sean McVay's system and of this offense as a whole. But we've seen what this McVay offense has been capable of in the past when he's had elite running backs. If anyone remembers how good Todd Gurley was for the Rams for those couple years with McVay, then you know what I'm talking about. Kyren Williams is a great back, and Blake Corum is a great back, but they're not like these like elite backs that can really make defenses like Seattle pay. So we saw it in the Thursday night matchup. The Rams really committed to the run in that one, and they had a lot of success, but they kind of got away from it late in the game when Seattle started to get some momentum. I don't know. Matthew Stafford is really the only quarterback that's had a good performance against Seattle this year. That Thursday night game, he had 450 yards. Puka went crazy, had 200-something yards and 2 touchdowns in that one. So it's a fascinating game for so many different elements because we know how dominant Seattle's defense is, but we also know how good the Rams' offense can be capable of. But we haven't seen it in recent weeks, but the last time we saw them being dominant was against the Seattle defense. This is such a coin flip game. I use that term so much on this podcast, but like it's a 2.5-point line. I'd almost put this as a pick 'em. I really would. This is it's Seattle. They're going to have a ton of juice. That stadium's going to be super, super loud. But the Rams are familiar. They play in Seattle once a year. They're familiar with this environment, with this stadium, making the trip up north to Seattle, Washington from LA. So it makes this just a fascinating matchup. I look at it and I take all the factors and I kind of weigh them. And I was going back and forth on this before the pod. I just think I'm ever so slightly leaning Seattle in this one. And the reason I think that is because Sam Darnold, we saw he's really struggled throwing the ball against this Rams team. But I think there was some confidence found in the second half of that Thursday night game late in the season, right? The first half did not go well for Sam Darnold in that game. But in the second half, as the Seahawks started to come back, Sam Darnold was starting to find his open guys. He wasn't as antsy in the pocket. He was throwing more in rhythm. And I think that the Seattle coaching staff can really make that a point of emphasis. Like, we saw what we were able to do against them in the second half of that game. Now it's about getting on them from the jump and doing it from the jump. And as we know from that 49er game, if Seattle jumps on you early, that stadium's going to get loud and it's going to make it a nightmare for the opposing team. So I just think that elite defense on one side of the ball and the quarterback maybe finding some confidence in the second half of that last game against the Rams, I think that gives Seattle the edge a little more. Not to mention that LA has not put together a complete performance in a long time. Even going back to that Seattle game, their defense really failed them down the stretch, was really getting gashed by the Seattle offense in the second half and in overtime. And it's one of those things, man, where it's like, okay, last week the defense showed up against the Bears, but the offense didn't. The week before that, the offense showed up against the Panthers, but the defense didn't. You go back to the Rams Seahawks Thursday night game. The defense showed up in one half, and then the offense showed up in the other half, but there wasn't a complete team effort in that one. And we're yet to see the Rams team play true complementary football in a while. Meanwhile, that's been the name of the game for the Seahawks, has been complementary football. Offense feeds off the defense. The Seahawks offense has been one of the best scoring offenses this year. That's not because the Seahawks offense has been marching down the field and just like dominating other teams' defenses. It's because their defense gets the ball for them, puts them in advantageous positions, and the offense takes advantage of it. And that's complementary football to a T. And I just think the Seahawks team down the stretch has been playing really good complementary football. The special teams, we saw it with Rashid Shaheed last week. Jason Myers has been one of the more reliable kickers in the National Football League this year. The defense is obviously elite, and the offense feeds off the defense. Meanwhile, the Rams, last week, the defense was on against Chicago, but the offense wasn't. The week before that, the wild card round, the offense was on against Carolina, the defense wasn't. And it just feels like they're yet to play a complementary football game in a long time. And I think in the playoffs, when you're going on the road, that's the name of the game. You have to play complementary football. And I haven't seen the Rams do that in a while. Not to mention this will be their third straight week on the road. I like Seattle in this one, not handedly, because as we've seen, both these teams, when they've played each other this year, it's come down to the final play of the game almost every single time. Two unbelievable coaches, an offensive guru in Sean McVay, a defensive guru in Mike Macdonald. Really fascinating game, and I just think it's going to come down to who plays the more complementary brand of football. I would put my money on Seattle doing that. So really fascinating game. I'm really, really excited about it as a football fan, as a 49er fan. Of course, I don't want to root for either of these teams. I kind of would rather root for the Rams, to be honest, but well, regardless, and the cool thing about this is there are some potential for some Super Bowl rematches here from recent years. As we remember, the Seahawks' one ring was against the Broncos, so there's a chance we get Seahawks-Broncos. The Seahawks Super Bowl loss, Malcolm Butler, that was against the Patriots. That was on NBC too. This year's Super Bowl's on NBC, so we have a chance for Seahawks-Patriots. As you guys might remember, it was a snore fest of the Super Bowl, but a defensive clinic by the Patriots when they beat the Rams back in, 2018, 2019. And the one unique matchup would be Broncos-Rams, but I think those are the two underdogs, are LA and Denver, so that's the least likely Super Bowl. So in all reality, there's a chance we're getting a Super Bowl rematch this week, and I would put my money on Seattle versus New England. That would be my Super Bowl pick right now. But as we know, you get to this time of year, these games are so even. It could go either way, and I think that if I'm leaning the two teams that Vegas is also leaning. I'm leaning Seattle. I'm leaning New England for a rematch on NBC of that Super Bowl, that iconic Super Bowl, Malcolm Butler at the goal line, the insane Jermaine Kearse catch down the sideline. And I think that could be a really fun game, some really cool storylines, to see the Seahawks and the Patriots back in the Super Bowl, but completely rebranded. No more Belichick, no more Pete Carroll, who were mainstays in those organizations for so long. Some new blood, two defense-oriented coaches, two player-friendly coaches. I think it would be a really fascinating game. And I most of these teams I'm not a huge fan of. There's no, at this point in the postseason, there's no really one team I'm a fan of. But I respect how all four of these teams got here, and it's a coaching thing. So it's really come down to how good the coaching has been for these four teams. Sean Payton's done an excellent job with this team, and he's going to need to do an excellent job if he wants to will a Jarrett Stidham-led offense to the Super Bowl. Mike Vrabel, year one with the Patriots, just absolutely unbelievable, taking this team from being a bottom-of-the-barrel team last year with a rookie quarterback to a 14-win team playing for an AFC championship. Mike Macdonald, all he's done since he got to Seattle is win. People forget because the Seahawks did not make the Super Bowl last year. They did still win 10 games. They just missed out on the playoffs by winning 10 games. That was with Geno Smith. They made some organizational changes, new offensive coordinator, new quarterback, and it's made more of a complementary, cohesive brand of football for Seattle. And Sean McVay, who many people believe is the greatest head coach in the National Football League, has a chance to go to his third Super Bowl and potentially win his second, and he'd have to do it going on the road to play a division rival. Just so many storylines in this week. It's going to be a really, really fun week of football, and I hope you guys have work off. I hope you don't have homework to do during these games. I think these are two games that, there's a chance we get some low scoring, especially New England, Denver could very well be low scoring, but Rams, Seahawks, potential for shootout, also potential for two defenses that are very opportunistic to take over the game. Very unpredictable. And, as weird as these Final Four teams are, I said it at the top of the show, I don't think anyone could have predicted these four teams to make it to the AFC and NFC championships. I think these are two very, very even games. And I think especially New England, Denver, people are counting out the Broncos because of Jarrett Stidham. And I'm taking New England, but I do not want to count out Denver. And I can tell you that much. So really, really fun weekend of football. I hope you guys enjoy it. I'll be here either Sunday or Monday night with my boy Game Time Gretch. We'll be recapping the games as we do every week as we get to the end of this NFL season. So, of course, the NFL content throughout the offseason will still be there. I'll still be talking about free agency moves, draft, and all that. But, of course, it won't be as much because there's not as much to talk about in the NFL offseason. What I do want to highlight is this is a UFC podcast as well. So for all my people that only like football, I promise there will still be content, just not as much. But if you love UFC too, if you love mixed martial arts too, MMA is starting back up. UFC 324 is in a couple days, so I'll be there too. If you haven't watched the 324 preview pod, it's out now. Go watch it. I'll be there to recap it. I'll go live on Saturday night to recap the fights. Very, very excited for that one. And then next week, UFC 325, Volk is fighting, and the UFC season is taking off and doesn't really stop because that's how MMA goes. That's how the UFC goes. So if you're an MMA fan, please tune in. If not, like I said, subscribe to the YouTube, follow the Spotify, check out the Instagram and the TikTok. I'm working hard on this. I really am. And I've gotten a lot of kind words about this podcast, and it really means the world to me. I'm working really hard on this alongside being a full-time student and trying to make a living down here, living in Southern California. So it's been great. It's been very gratifying, and I'm working hard, and I hope you guys enjoy it all. So if you have any recommendations, any complaints, anything, please let me know. Any publicity is good publicity. If you have any recommendations for stuff to do for the pod, or any of my sports fans out there, if you want to hop on the pod, talk some sports with me, please let me know. I'm always willing to do that, always willing to have people hop on, hear different perspectives about the NFL and the UFC. So I appreciate everyone watching. It means the absolute world to me if you're here to the end. I say it every time. You're an absolute psycho, but I love you, and I will see you guys later.